What if your money problem isn't about money at all, but it's about identity? Today, Tiffani Churchill shows us how she went from manifesting everything but cash to embodying wealth. And she's sharing the pocket tool she uses to interrupt lack on the spot. Then we go bigger on how her altruistic app turns your phone into a portal for group level intention and world level change. If you've ever wondered why money is the last thing to move, this episode is your bridge. Welcome to the Manifestation and Money Podcast, the show where we tackle the taboo topics of money and manifestation. I'm your host, Jenny Schultz, former 9-to-5 grinder who ditched the status quo and went all in on creating a life I love. Yes, I use manifestation. Yes, I took action. And yes, I created a 7-figure net worth before turning 40. Every week, I'll bring you inspiring stories with money mavens and manifestation masters. From learning how to make more, save more, and grow your wealth to unlocking the power of manifesting your dream life. I am so excited to play in this space with you. Let's jump into creating a life you love. Welcome to the Manifestation and Money Podcast, Tiffani.
Oh, I'm so excited to be here with you today, Jenny.
I am pumped too, and I would love for you to share with the listeners just who you are and what your story is.
And thank you for that. I am Tiffani Churchill, and I really feel that at a young age, I unlocked the code to manifesting. I was able to heal my body. I brought into my experience an incredible career, an amazing relationship. I manifested cars and houses. I have an extraordinary story of traveling around the world that if we have time at the end, maybe we'll all share. But once I realized that I could consciously and intentionally shape my outer experiences, it made me wonder, what could we do together? And so I joined countless meditation groups, intention groups, prayer groups, and I really wanted to better understand how we could take this ability to manifest, ability to shape our experiences, and we could do it more on a group level. And so I saw the absolute miraculous happen during this time. And then because I saw and experienced so much, it then made me wonder, well, what could we do on a global level? And also, what were we already shaping? Were we unconsciously shaping the problems that we have in the world right now? And what would happen if we shifted that and began to co-create the future and the experiences for humanity that we really do want to live? The problem that I had is there was nowhere that I knew of to really build this global community or to really start to shift our awareness and have these conversations of let's co-create a better world. So I built a platform to do just that. It's called ALLTRUEISTIC, and it's a free app. And it's a beautiful space to manifest, intend, meditate to enhance your own life, to come together to support another. Oftentimes it's somebody on a healing journey, an abundance journey, and we can share our group energy to support them. And then we come together for global things, to come together to co-create a better world for all of us. And one of the experiences that I had was when I first really went down this manifestation path, and I really saw so many of my outer experiences shift. I transformed my whole entire life. I really call it the story from nothing to everything. But the one area that kept eluding me was money. It seemed like I had figured out so many things, but this area was where I was still not seeing the results. And it really took a lot of my deep diving to understand, how can so much be working out for me, but I haven't figured out this? And I share this because I find a lot of people have a similar experience, that a lot of times what we want most in our lives, the areas we might feel that we need the greatest results in, are the areas that we have the hardest time getting those results in. And so for some people, it might be healing. Some people, it might be relationships, but for a lot of people, they're like me, and it really is money that is eluding us. And so I'm super excited to be here with you today. I'm happy to take this conversation in any direction that you would like to go. And I'm also happy to share kind of my personal relationship with money and how I transformed that into now being a multimillionaire and really changing my outer experiences to match the inner vision that I was holding.
Okay. This is going to be a fun conversation. Let's start digging into you and your story and how that kind of evolved. And then we'll go into the app because I am intrigued and definitely want to hear more about that. You said you learned about manifestation and started using it. So it wasn't something that came naturally to you. I'm curious, on what that evolution looked like for you of what you did to shift into learning about manifestation or trying out some techniques?
So I was at an early age, just reading all kinds of teachers, all kinds of books, meditating, and at a very young age, really starting to recognize that I could shift my outer experiences. And at the time in my early 20s, I was teaching yoga, I was teaching meditation, I was really in that world, but I had a corporate career as well. And it started with understanding the link to yoga and seeing some of the yoga teachers heal their body. And I had this nervous, I don't want to call it illness, but just this nervous disorder that my hands would shake. I would get so nervous I almost couldn't speak in front of people. I wouldn't have been able to do this podcast at that time. And I went to a neurologist and he said it was going to get worse as I aged. I said, that's not a reality that I want to live in. My hands would shake so bad I couldn't hold something. And if it was going to be worse, what was that going to look like long term? So I turned to some of these teachers that really could provide evidence in my life that this was possible. At first, I needed that belief that I could do it, and I healed my body. And so I began in that inner world. And when I saw what I could do inside, it made me say, what could I do in my external world? And so I was living in an unfulfilling career and an unhappy relationship and all of those types of things. And I just started experimenting, exploring, and saying, what would happen if? And then as I tried it, I started to say, okay, that worked, but this didn't work. And then I would start to try and figure out how I could duplicate it. How could I have healed my body? But why isn't it working where I can change my outer career? And so I started really just in experimentation. Obviously, there's a lot of amazing teachers out there that led me along the way that really built a solid foundation for me. But it was also that inner work of exploring through meditation and then testing and experimenting and finding the evidence and seeing those results, and then ultimately transforming every aspect of my life.
You had mentioned that money was a block for you. You were manifesting these other areas of your life, but you were stuck on money. What did you unpack from that? What did it come down to for you to shift into money can come easily for Tiffani?
It was a really frustrating experience because everything in my life was transforming, and yet I couldn't put the link between why is that working and this is not. I think that happens to a lot of us. A lot of people are experimenting with manifesting. They're seeing the results in their lives, but they're also saying, wait a minute, why is this showing up? And I'm doing the same work and this is not showing up in my life. And so that was me. And I was really working to understand. I was doing a multitude of different things. I was working with different teachers, mentors, spiritual teachers. I was meditating, trying to find the answers within. And like so many things that happen to us when we're on this path, the answer to it showed up in the silliest way. So many times we are trying and we're forcing things to show up, and they always come in ways we won't expect. And that's true of everything. So that's true when we are on a manifesting path, that when we try and force, it's not going to show up, and it's always going to come in a way when we let go, we release, and we just allow it to show up in its own beautiful, remarkable way. The answer actually came to me at the time. My now husband and I, his name is Mike, we were dating, and we were driving through Los Angeles, and there was this beautiful store. It had this brick exterior with these vines draping down the store, and I had driven by it many times. And I'd always wanted to go in, but this programming was always playing in my mind that if I walked into the store, they would see my shoes and they would see my purse and they would know that I basically didn't belong there. That's that imposter syndrome that's playing out in my head. And so I never went into this store. My husband and I are driving we were dating at the time, and he says, have you ever been into this store? And of course I hadn't, and I didn't share it with him. And he said, let's go in. I watched my husband walk into this store, and he had this presence about him. At the time, we had both been divorced for a while, and we were both rebuilding. So both of us were financially at a new starting point. The difference was when he walked, he had known wealth in his life before. He had owned planes, he had owned every exotic car, he had successful businesses. It was just in this moment in his life that he was restarting. And so I walked and watched into the store, and there wasn't any hesitation that he didn't belong there. There was no thought in his mind that he couldn't afford anything. He walked in like he belonged there. I walked in a way feeling lack, wasn't going to be able to afford anything. I didn't belong there. They were going to know I didn't belong there. And it really hit home to me that money isn't just a thing. And a lot of times we'll hear it's an energy, which it is, a currency. But what I recognized in that day is it's a state of being. And so for me, I changed the word from money to wealth. And I recognize that wealth is a way, that a state that we can cultivate. And so he was my big lesson. I could learn that he walked differently than I walked. He had a presence different than I had. He had a way of thinking, a way of speaking. And I started learning and mirroring him. And I started saying, I need to cultivate and start to build in myself a wealthy state of being, not chasing money, not working harder, which we all probably work hard, but there's plenty of people that work really hard that don't move ahead into a wealthy position in life, and plenty of people that do. So what is the difference? To do that, I started looking at what were my beliefs. And many years ago, I had a spiritual teacher that showed me that we could be the observer and we could become the thinker. And so we could separate ourselves from our thoughts. And when you separate yourself from your thoughts, you can then observe your thoughts. And when you can observe your thoughts, you're doing it without any kind of attachment, and you can start to learn from it. I became the observer of my own thoughts and seeing, what was I thinking about wealth? What was I feeling about it? What were the words that I was speaking when I was having conversations? Was I saying things like, I can't afford that? I don't have the money for that. What was it that I was living in this relationship to money and wealth? And I found that I had a belief that to be spiritual, because I had been on the spiritual path my whole life, that I was living in this way that you had to renounce your wealth. You know, Buddha went and he renounced his wealth. And I somehow along the way adopted that belief system. And life always does. It presented exactly what I believed. Money would flow to me and it would flow right away from me. So I was always renouncing it, just not consciously or purposely. I had to rewrite that belief system. And to do so, the first thing that I did is I found evidence that my belief system was wrong. So I looked for wealthy people that were both wealthy and spiritual. And I began to show my subconscious, my own mind, that there was a different reality than what it was believing in. You know, I used to be a big fan of Wayne Dyer. I know Wayne Dyer wasn't living in lack. Yogananda wasn't living in lack. So these spiritual beings were not living in a lackful state. And I began to change my belief system. The other thing that I did is I created an image of what wealth meant to me. My intention at the time, my conscious choice to bring into my reality, was to become a multimillionaire. So I found an image of what that would mean to me. And on the back of it, I wrote a description of what it would be like as if I already were that. And so as I was observing my mind, I recognized that when a thought would come up that didn't align with that state of being, I would interrupt it. I'd bring up that image that I had created. I'd read the words. And every time that I would say something like, I can't afford that, or have that lackful thought, I would install new programming. I would install a new belief system. Now, at first, this could happen 20, 30, 40, 50 times a day, because when you really start to observe your mind, it's really amazing how many times we start connecting back to that lack. So I was interrupting this pattern continually and reinstalling this programming. Now I can do it on altruistic. I have that same ability, so I don't have to carry that image around, but that's what worked for me for a long time. And then sure enough, I was creating this new programming. I was training my subconscious for a new belief system. I was rewiring my whole state of being to be wealthy until eventually that became my full reality.
There's so many golden nuggets in there of things to do, things to embody to rewire your beliefs. Because, like you said, it's not an easy process. And for you, I love that you had an image and then you also wrote descriptors, because to be able to connect with that image in the moment when you're feeling that lack is not the easiest thing. So if you can write it out exactly what you want to embody, then be able to flip that over and read it in the moment when you are at a different vibration, that's an easier way for you to bring yourself back up. And did you pack this image around in your pocket, in your purse? Did you have it on your person at all times?
I did because if you have it, if I had it on my mirror and I connected to it in the morning, but then my car breaks down and I'm sitting in the mechanic and those lackful thoughts, that's when they're coming up. How am I going to afford this? And then I couldn't connect back to it. So I did. I carried it around. And every time it really is a matter of though being conscious to know when you're having that disconnect from the reality you want to bring into your life. I could become aware I was disconnected from that future reality that I wanted to experience, and I could bring it up. The image, I feel, is like an anchor. It's a GPS point. So at first it took, me sitting down for a little bit longer, really programming that image into my subconscious of what it meant, really programming that wording into my consciousness, into my brain. What does this mean? So that meant I had to see it, I had to feel it. I sat in a meditative state, really bringing it up. So by the time it was in my purse, over time, I could just bring up the image. I no longer had to sit in those deep states of meditation for a long time, because what I feel I did is I already calibrated the experience into my cells in my body. And now that image just served as the anchor to bring me back to that state. So it depends on how far away. For me, obviously, money, I had to really train myself to believe in it. So it took a little bit more time. For some people, they might not have, it's almost like a gap between where you are now and the experience you'd like to bring into your reality. Depends on how wide that gap is. For me, it was wide. I was living in lack, and that felt like that multi-million felt like a long way away. If you asked me how I was going to achieve it, I have a businesses, so I could have had an answer, but I didn't exactly know. And so I took a lot of reprogramming, retraining to really get into those belief systems. And one of the things that, just to show that I found, I didn't really need to know where the belief system came from. I didn't really need to dive all the way back into that backstory and really figure out how I had gotten there. I just had to reprogram it to where I wanted to go, just like setting that GPS.
All right. I feel like this is the perfect segue into your app, because to me, an app, we all have our phones. So you have created this app that I feel like could be this kind of tool that people always have in their back pocket. So can we go into that here?
Absolutely. So that's exactly what it's for. Instead of carrying a piece of paper, because actually a lot of times we have several things we might be working on at the same time that we want. And we'll talk about the app for just a minute in enhancing our own life, because that's a great segue into what I was just talking about. And so we might have several things. You're not going to want to carry this big booklet of all these images. You carry an app everywhere with you. And so the app allows you to at first do just what I was saying, to calibrate the experience, to take a little bit longer, to feel that experience ahead of actually having it show up for you, to really train your body to program every single cell as if it's a reality now. So you have that. But then in those moments when you're disconnected from it and you're out about in the world, you have the ability to quickly pull up your phone because you're carrying it everywhere. I design it specifically as an app for that reason. Also for the reason that technology is a beautiful opportunity to bring it in and use it for a greater purpose that we might not fully be using right now. I wanted to turn our phones into something else than what we might be using it for. And let's turn our phones into this ability to consciously create our lives, or to uplift another, or to create a better world.
The piece that's coming to me as you were talking about your app leading into this that I find fascinating is I love masterminds. I love getting together with other people so we can have that co-creation of thought going together. And as a whole, we're coming up with ideas that individually we would have never, not that we have never would have gotten to, but it would have taken us a lot longer to get to. So in your app, you kind of like a meditation mastermind, it sounds like. You're bringing people together that individually they can use this tool that you've created, but then as a group, they can also come together and do something even bigger.
Correct. I love that word. I love that analogy of a mastermind. You're absolutely right. We call it 3 dimensions. So we really want to meet you wherever you are, manifesting and creating the experiences and transforming your life. Every step that you take to enhance your own life is a way to better the world. So absolutely, it's a perfect tool. And in the app, there's a public timeline. But what I'm talking about is on your personal timeline. No one else sees it. I have a lot of personal intentions, manifestations, meditations, whatever word we want to use to describe it. I have those that nobody else sees. I start my morning with it. I start my morning with creating my day. I start my morning with feeling into what do I need right now. I tune into the app before our podcast right now so that I can set that emotion, set that space, set that whatever it might need, I feel, set that intention that I'm communicating clearly, set that intention that I'm providing the information that everyone listening right now will gain the most value from. So there's a lot of different things that I use it for. And then I use it to reconnect. I have two different businesses. And during the day, I might be in a state of overwhelmment. And so just shifting your state. So it's not always the outside thing, a car, a house, money, those outside things. It could be an internal state, shifting back into gratitude, shifting back into opening my heart, unconditional love. Those types of things we can use, and we can quickly shift our state as well. But then you're right, there's something so extraordinary about that collective energy. And when you're in a mastermind group, when you're in a group meditation, when you're in a group intention, there is just something magical happens that when we come together. There is an epidemic also of loneliness that's occurring all over the world. And so community is very needed right now. And it's really powerful when you come together, either at the same moment, or in quantum physics, you can have non-locality, so you don't technically have to be that same moment in time, and you can still tap into that collective energy. And it's a really powerful experience. And it's also a really quick way to shift your state. When I'm not aligned with the things that I would like to create into my experience, one of the fastest ways for me to shift my state is to give to another. And so in the app, a lot of times, like I said, it could be somebody on a healing journey. It could be somebody on an abundance journey. It could be somebody that wants our collective attention for their business growth. But no matter what it is, if I take just even a few seconds, a few minutes out of my day, and I take the focus off of myself and I give energetically to another immediately without doing anything else, my state shifts.
How does someone do that? Like, is it you just setting your intention and I'm just curious.
So in the app, there is a plus button, and you can create your own reality, create your manifested experience, whatever the term you want to use is. And then you have a choice. You can choose to just go in your personal intention space so no one else sees it. You can choose private. So you can invite coworkers. You can invite family members. If one of your family members is on a healing journey, you can invite others. So that's private. It only experience is between you and those people you invite, or it can be public. And so there's a lot of things for, healing of our planet. People will post their own healing journey on the public. And so they want as much group energy contributing to it, amplifying it as they can get. That's completely up to you. So then there's times where you come together at the same moment in time. We call them happening now. Or times where you might have just a few minutes out of your day and you say, I'm just going to give to this right now. And you might see things that you could give at any time energetically, your awareness, your intention, your energy at that moment in time. And we guide you through. There's a begin button, and we start with this, what's called a resonance sequence. It's just a tap through quick screen. It allows you to step out of your current circumstances. So when you're manifesting anything, you're not going to manifest from stress or from overwhelmment. And so you have to just take a moment, align with your breath, clear your mind, connect back into your heart. And then you start to give your energy either to something you want to bring into your reality or to give to somebody else. And then music plays, and you just sit in that energy, and you sit in the experience as if it's already a reality. So if you're bringing something into for your own experience, like I did with wealth, I started seeing myself already as a multimillionaire and really tapping to that inner energy as if it already has happened. And so you're doing that, you're tapping to that energy, feeling that experience ahead of it becoming a reality right now. So we really guide you through it. And it really is a powerful, beautiful experience, and a tool like we expressed that you can take anywhere with you.
Mhm. I love how you just articulated experiencing it as if it's in a reality that you haven't yet experienced. Because many people have a trouble with connecting on how do I envision what I want when I'm dealing with my current situation that I'm in now. But I think you said it beautifully there. Can you please circle back up and share that story that you were talking about at the beginning of your trip around the world?
Absolutely. And I think this really highlights everything that I've been talking about and even what we do in the app. And so when I shared with you that when my husband and I were first married, we were restarting over, and I had always wanted to travel, and I really hadn't had the time or money in my life, which is a belief system, right? It was, I believed I didn't have the time or money. And at this time in our lives, we really didn't. I said, well, how can I shift this belief system? And so I photoshopped pictures of my family members and I in all kinds of different places all over the world. I photoshopped my daughter and I on a shopping spree in Paris, my children and I in London, my son and I riding snowmobiles in Iceland. I photoshopped a family yacht trip in Greece, and my husband and I in Tuscany. And what I did is I had a wall with all of our family memories on it. And I took those images and I put them amongst our family memories so that my subconscious didn't know the difference between what was a past memory and what I hadn't yet experienced. And what I did is I placed them in somewhere I could walk by every day. I walked by these. I didn't spend time really thinking about it. I just allowed everything to flow naturally. And within a really short amount of time, my daughter and I had an incredible shopping spree in Paris. My children and I were in London. I have pictures of my son snowmobiling. We explored all of Iceland together. We ended up on a family yacht trip. We took our 3 children and a bunch of their friends on this yacht through the Greek islands. It was incredible. One of my favorite parts of the story is there was this incredible winery in Tuscany that had just been built. It was Antinori Winery, and they had this beautiful spiral staircase. And so my husband and I were there, and this woman comes up to us and says, "Would you like me to take your picture?" And we say, "Of course." So she takes our photo. We get home from the vacation. I'm looking at my photos, and I see the photo of that trip, and I look at it, and I think that's exactly the same spot that I have in my wall. It is exactly the same place that I had photoshopped into my wall. The beautiful point of that story is, one, how we can really shape our experiences and the power that we truly have, but also that same thing that we built into the app. So a lot of this is what I intentionally put into the app so that others could have these experiences. I worked with images, same thing we're doing in the app. I worked with it, imagining it as if it's already a reality, the same thing that we're doing. These things that I had found, these tools, this formula that I had found to work is all plugged in into the very foundation of what I built.
Fascinating. And where can people find out more information about your app?
Altruistic is spelled ALLTRUEISTIC. All is our collective, true as if it's already a reality, and istic allows us to play on the word altruistic, that selfless giving to another. We're free in the Google Play Store. We're free in the App Store. You can find us at altruistic.com, or you can follow us on Instagram.
Okay, perfect. I'll be sure to link that all in the show notes. And before I let you go, I would love for you to share with the listeners just what your biggest piece of advice is to go out and create a life you love.
My biggest piece of advice is to let go of the limitations, to dream big, and to go after it, not just with the physical work that you do, but really the tools that I'm suggesting. Build it internally. Choose what it is that you would like to bring into your life. Build it internally as if it's already a reality, and tune into that state of being. And what I would love to see is more people living outside of their limitation and truly living in their power, because we have so much potential to not only create the lives that we dream of, but to co-create a more evolved future for all of humanity together.
That is the perfect way to end this episode today. Thank you so much for sharing that. And thank you so much for joining me on the show today, Tiffani.
Thank you, Jenny.
Thank you for hanging out with me on the Manifestation and Money podcast. If you're ready to take your manifesting to the next level, come join me inside the Manifestation Playground. It's an intentional space I've created to explore, experiment, and expand your manifestation potential. It's where the magic happens. So head on over to www.manifestationplayground.ca to find out more. Until next time, keep dreaming, keep taking aligned action. Cheers to creating a life you love.